Beep, beep, bop, boop. Warning. Oh, I don't know where my little bugger is. Ooh. I was like, oh, I should have I should have started this per usual a while ago. But this is just me doing my thing. And it was, at first it was just a note about the color. And then it evolved from there into this, and I've taken a few screenshots, to document the process. But this is like, when I paint, I do these sort of, personal Easter eggs, and this is kind of like that. It has to do, with this specific color, and then different colors as I'm going, either already had some sort of special meaning, that I've talked about this, I know, at least once before, about my, creative process, and that when I put stuff in, little hidden things, and this was, before, well, yeah, just kind of always doing my art, like people think of the color, red for like anger or whatever, and a lot of times I would do the opposite of that, just to, be the little contrarian, future snarky artist, whatever, just to, like throw people off the scent or get people to think about things, period, but also about assumptions and the status quo and whatnot. But like here, I went over, and it's part of my wordplay that I do, and my channeling as well, which, it all is, to a certain degree, it's, whether it's me, channeling the muses, channeling my memory, my history, my higher self, or straight up, channeling, like getting messages from 𝐓𝐴 and the PTB and whatnot. It's all a grand co-creation. But like there, it's, 5-3. So here's one of them. It's like, an 8 turned sideways. But like when I started, after I turned 33 and reached a certain point of my evolution, and started seeing things and understanding my type of channeling, being a conscious channel, I started noticing, like, oh, with numbers, and I call it like God math. Like there, 654, 654 Asbury Avenue is, my first house that I was born and brought home to and lived in, with my parents until we moved to California. And then even after we had moved, and we would go spend some summers in New Jersey, because my parents still had their stores on the boardwalk. And then my dad and I would go by ourselves, which was special. At a certain point, and I don't remember exactly when, he and I would go, and it was during the school year, and I would, finish out the school year there. And I remember not living at 654 Asbury Avenue, which is now a surf shop and has been since my parents sold it. But I started, when I, began like more seriously working on a collection of a single volume memoir idea. And at first I was like, oh shit, like I forget, like I've had such a life, kind of like this picture. It's like, oh, well, so many things are happening, at light speed, like in my interior, that trying to communicate all of them would be, possible if I slowed down, if I were consciously paying attention and not just in the flow. But my life has been so like just, I knew from a pretty young age, at least when I was 18, I knew that like my life would make an interesting book or movie or whatever. By the time I went to art school in San Francisco, or went to go to art school in San Francisco, and mostly didn't go to art school and just enjoyed San Francisco as an 18-year-old. And then the earthquake hit and scared the shit out of me. And I hightailed it to the East Coast. But just my life, like the big things, death has been a huge part of my life. Dead people, the joke, all my friends are dead. All my spirit friends are dead. 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧 showed up when I was 12, consciously, like, she's always there. And that's what this is, the KY. That's how I have always, spelled 𝐓𝐴N, is KWAN, and then yin, YIN. Other people spell it, with a Q, QUANYIN as one word. And canon, it depends on, different parts of Asia and their linguistic incorporation of her name. But, for me, and that's what this is about. This is like, hi, Mom. That little I is like I and I, like I'm a Gemini. And, I was going to write hi, like HIGH, in terms of, oh, look. And see, here's a perfect example. Not just high, like high up, and haha high, like get high. My mom, part of my story, marijuana mama. But there, like the GH that I just added live here, is, then could be ghost, spirits. Because, quote, quote, all my spirit friends are dead. Which is not true, but, for the most part. And when I say that, it's that, as a channel, as a spiritual person, my primary teacher my first conscious teacher was Kuan Yin when my mom started channeling. And, thought she was losing it, which I understand, and I'm going to get into at some point, talking about, not just the mental health aspect in general, but for spiritually, energetically sensitive people, and the fine line between, like crazy and enlightened. One of my working titles for my, book, my memoir, was, it came from a joke of, like, I look crazy on paper, but I don't, and it's like the duality play on that, just like my life, as in like crazy, but not mentally ill crazy, like that's so crazy, oh my god. And one of my sort of early insights into that fine line, and I want to make the point, and please reach out if you have any questions or concerns, or you're going through, your dark night of the soul, or, questioning your own sanity, or any of that stuff. One thing to keep in mind, and the reason, I was never crazy on paper, the truth side of that, is that I grew up, starting from a young age at, 12, with my mom as a channel. And, this is in the 80s. And it, the whole New Age movement and whatnot, and where we were in Laguna, in Southern California, it was more prevalent, and, Shirley MacLaine and da-da-da-da. But it was still like, secret, or, in the esoteric sense of like, all right, this is our secret club, or our secret society. And that happens for, a number of reasons. Comfort. For me, I was like, this is weird. And, as open as I am and have been, I am, that has evolved in me. And like, I would tell my friends that, didn't like know from the beginning, about what was going on. My very, very closest friends, who the closest one is another one of all my friends are dead. Christy, who, that was, I think I started to say one of my early deaths, like personal, not just, my grandparents, which is how my mom started channeling, was, she, after my pop-up died, I'm going to see if I can do this and talk, which it'll be interesting, because the, artistic side will be the one that I'm less consciously paying attention to. But so she started, after he died, she started typing letters to him, instead of calling him on the phone. So she was basically, continuing that dialogue, that communication, conversation. And, she was starting to get into New Age stuff. Hadn't started channeling, but it was like, when she did actually start channeling as free writing, You know, she still was like, oh my God, you know, ran downstairs and woke me up. And I'm like, I think I'm losing it. And I'm like, calm down. Like, you're fine. Like, okay, what's going on? Because those letters to my pop-up started, you know, spontaneously being something else. And it was, you know, channeled writing, free writing. And then it evolved into, you know, trance channeling. But so the point, let me finish, is that this is Kuan Yin, was a bodhisattva who, when she, you know, reached enlightenment, decided to, you know, not go to nirvana land, heaven, whatever. When she reached the point of like, okay, I don't have to do this anymore, she made the decision to, you know, stay and help out, hold up the world, as it were, until all sentient beings reached that point, till they were free. So, you know, that is that little bit of this. I'm waiting for my kiddo, my little chicken, which this started as me trying to add a description to my first, like, on purpose YouTube short. And I was, you know, titling these things and writing descriptions even more so, is just like, oh, really? Because I had gotten to the point where, you know, I record and like, okay, I'm saving this for later. And then the PTB got to the point of like, you know, just fucking build it, you know, just do it, just upload it, don't watch it, you know, because as an artist and as a, you know, I'm sort of a weird mix, per usual, of a perfectionist. You know, I see something in my head artistically, and I until it is, you know, translated properly in whatever medium I'm working in, medium, get it? Channel, medium, YouTube channel, which when I first really started to develop my own style, and just really like, I'm just being creative, I'm doing me, it was combining my poetry and prose, I guess, technically, both, combining, you know, words, my words, and, you know, my paint or whatever. Now I've kind of like gone in reverse, and, you know, that has evolved. But so, titling these fucking things, and the process of doing this, like, you know, because I've been told for a while, you know, actually I was a teenager, I don't remember exactly when, you know, some things are more precise, and I used to really not pay attention to, you know, dates and whatnot. It was like the least important thing of my experience was like, oh, when did that happen? Because one of my things, like, as a kid with my friends, is like, I used to say when I was trying to, like, all right, let's go be naughty, let's skip school or whatever. It was like, you're not even going to remember this in 10 years, or nobody's going to remember this. Like, if you get in trouble, you're not going to remember getting grounded in 10 years. But, I did believe, and it was true, that, like, but you will remember, like, potentially, like, how much fun we're going to have doing whatever we're doing instead of going to school. So, anyway, I'm just like trying to figure out how to start putting these things, like all of these recordings, because that's what I started to say was it's the like drawing and talking thing. The PTB, I've had very specific sort of instructions, and it's always been that, like, even when 𝐓𝐴 told me that, and I'm pretty sure she said, and I didn't catch it until years later, that I was a channel, but I remembered it, and that was, at that time, sort of like selective memory of like, all right, I'm only accepting so much of this statement. Was, the way she said it was, because, I was just talking about being a little like absolutely personally loving, and, obviously have had some sort of history, past lifeness, whatever, with channeling and comfort, personally, privately, but as, a 12, 13, 14, whatever year old girl, less comfortable, like I was saying, sharing it with my friends, and whatnot, being comfortable in my own life skin, if that makes sense. But hello, puss. So yeah, for me though, I have had, this is 40 plus years for me. That's the thing. I've been like, when I put like my experience or whatever, to do this like as a profession, as a, whatever. Ooh, that's a pretty palette. That's where it all begins. Like, even though I've known that this was, at least for the past, 22 years, right? I was like 30 and 54. So, 20 plus years is my level of experience with all of this stuff. But, doing it like, say, like as a job, which started about the same time, but around 30, I had like finally said like, okay, 𝐓𝐴, I'll do it. Like, I'll do it. When I got run over and died, I agreed to, do it, to come back into my body, to do what I was supposed to do this whole time. But still, it took me a while, because I had to recover from getting run over, and that's been it's an ongoing process, getting used to just in like 3D-ness of like, oh, I'm about to turn 24, and my body that up until, the moment of impact was like crazy healthy and functioning, physical, mental, everything. And then, that was not the case after a 2-ton pickup truck, rammed me in the ass and dragged me down the street with a person scooped up in my arms, and then spit us out, and then, just for a little bonus, ran over my foot, my left foot. So my right pelvis, hip side, my right side in the midsection of my body got super fucked up, and then my left foot. So it's like, oh, haha, that was kind of the joke. It's like, oh, you don't even have a good leg to stand on, because my foot that was functioning, at least for close to a year, then one day stopped working when I had gotten back to work, and with heavily medicated and for pain, and after months of recovering, and thinking that I was oh, this is my future, then I took a step at work, and my foot, I just felt excruciating pain, and during the accident, it was trauma surgery, and they were just focused on saving my life, and Frankensteining me back together, and then they put a cast on my foot. So obviously, they knew something was up, but that was like, that was like super secondary. But then it wasn't when I took a step, and my bones that had just been, I didn't have any foot surgery at that point. It was just a cast. Took a step and was like, ah, and my bones that had been sort of like old-timey furniture, joint furniture, that I was just rewatching Breaking Bad, and Jesse was doing something, where you notch things together. So my foot bones, my metatarsals, which are the tip bones, were just kind of sitting together, being held in place by, luck and a prayer, defying gravity, and then that stopped, and I needed surgery. So, but that's what I'm saying. My life is, I've had a lot happen, and that was before my interior really took off. When I had, what people would call it, my awakening, Kundalini awakening, yada yada. I don't use those terms really, other than out of necessity and ability. But in regards to myself, I don't care, but they seem necessary-ish to sort of talk about this stuff to you guys, which I have, without any feedback and whatnot, I have no idea what your level of linguistic familiarity, with all of the jargon of spirituality, and it's changed, it took me a minute to sort of videos I'm watching, it's like, hi collective, and I was like, what the fuck, I didn't understand, but then through context, I was like, oh, okay, this is people who are doing, tarot readings, and then, later, a couple people who are channels use that language, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's talking about me, and you, and you, and you, and you. So where other people will say collective, I'll say like you guys, or, you know, you, or whatever. This is weird. I don't have my little buddy. Like, I don't even know for sure if I'm recording right now, except that's how I know, because my little, you know, avatar me that usually is sitting like up here. I've been working on it though, updating it, but you know, it sits right there when I'm recording, and that's how, and I leave the clock on it running, so I'm like, oh, okay, pay attention at least a little bit to how long I'm doing this, and whatnot. But yeah, so this is, I'll just talk about this and then wrap it up, but like there, so like, you know, once I was paying attention a little more to starting to get synchronicity, like extra, and learning how to channel in that way, I was like, oh, 3 plus 5 is 8. 8, infinity. And like, there's the 𝐴𝐸. And while 𝐴𝐸 doesn't mean infinity, it's, you know, so that's the kind of stuff, like, depending on where you're at, communicating with, you know, spirit, source, angels, whatever, Kuan Yin, the PTB, as I call all of that. That's my collective, which includes you and me, but that's like a whole another thing, and I thought I'm making a video on that, like, snarky Sifuisms 101, like, just to, like, the PTB is but I'm gonna repeat myself until I don't. But as a teacher in this way, as a Sifu, which that's what Sifu means, and snarky is, you know, my sense of humor, the divine comedy of it, you know, through my eyes, which is like, you know, that color is representing Kuan Yin. That color is my mom, but that's like, I thought my mom was the reason that I was drawn to, you know, the number 22, and, you know, 222, because whoopsie, that's her birthday, February 22nd. But then when I had my numerology chart done, I'm a master builder. So, but then other things like the number 11 for me, you know, as visual, multi-layered communication, you know, that's an 11, which is Gemini sign. You know, if you can look at it that way. It's also, in numerology, it's one of the numbers that doesn't get broken down. I didn't know jack shit about numerology until I did. And I didn't even know, like, for most of my life until I was maybe 50, maybe a little sooner than that, but, you know, definitely within the last 12 years, since my kiddo was born, I thought that, and this explains the sort of process of unfolding of enlightenment, how it happens, you know, and the idea of like a lotus flower, you know, opening, or an onion, or whatever, but, you know, in spiritual, you know, woo-woo jargon, that represents, you know, enlightenment is the lotus, which grows in the mud, you know, or the shit, which, you know, as a person who is, you know, a living future ascended master or whatever, the training process is like, holy shit, you know, you got to go through a lot. Some teachers talk about, you know, the process as we have to experience everything, which is how this whole, you know, human earth school 3D, you know, experiment gone wrong happened, is like, oh, you know, we're gonna go experience life because, you know, we're spirits or souls, we're energetic beings, being human in this physical embodiment. And, you know, apparently we trapped ourselves here. Like, we forget that, oh, we're, you know, the whole illusion idea is like, whoopsie, it's part of the game, part of the, like, you know, with some people, like the Matrix. All of those things are true because, you know, all potential anything is its isness. So, but I don't get hung up on the dogma, particularly like dogma that creates fear, because I used to freak myself out just thinking about like the concept of infinity, like just thinking about it, like, gave me anxiety. It was too overwhelming, you know. It broke my brain to a certain extent. I'm like, okay, that's not fun, so let's not do that. But, you know, the idea of enlightenment as an unfolding adventure, as, you know, these petals or layers of an onion opening, and, you know, through the process of experience, life on earth, etc. Both your internal and external, and, you know, through the framework of linear time, generally first, you know, I don't know when, but like my first like insight, download, as some people would call it, clairsentience, like I knew things long before I knew them. Well, I knew about them from books and, you know, external experience or sources. I got this vision of time as a slinky, you know, but not a slinky like this, you know. It was the like spiral, and this is before I learned all this stuff, and purposely, you know, was guided to not learn things, to take whatever bits of knowledge that I came across externally is part of the process, and following my process exactly. My perfection process was part of it. It's like, okay, you know, and then that's an evolving thing, which I didn't understand why, but, you know, it all makes sense to me, and I'm happy to explain any of it to anyone who has questions or whatever. But so back to this is like, you know, lucky. That's where I saw, oh, there's a KY in lucky, because I was like, lucky number 7, and then 13. What is my first, like, I'm gonna create my own reality as a, you know, teenager. I'm like, everyone's like, oh, Friday the 13th, it's bad, da, 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 da. I was like, fuck that, like, lucky 13, just because I've always been drawn to, like, as I said, like, the opposite of what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to believe, what we're supposed to whatever. So, and then I was like, holy shit, like it worked. And I wasn't doing it for that reason fully. Or I was, but I didn't understand fully what it was that I was doing by reclaiming the number 13 for myself in the, like, to not, I'm like, why would I take the possibility away from myself that Friday the 13th could be my lucky day? And then this was a 7, because, like, that's more the traditional lucky number. But then that was, 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧, there she is, like, holding up the world, kind of like lucky us, and not the U.S. But see, there's another thing. I'm not into us and them. And, through my process of post-awakening and, prior to, seeing through duality, seeing beyond it, but through the, like, radical process of seeing it everywhere and then consciously breaking down the, there's duality, lucky 7, unlucky 13, but when you look at that as, like, yin yang, it's a necessary construct that is a byproduct of our soul's decision to come and play here at Earth School for our, soul's evolution, or whatever reason. When I got run over and died, I was told, already that this was, and I was told prior to that this was my, last lifetime, and that what that meant has evolved as life has continued, but it had to do something with, my relationship with my brother, and, it was our last chance to kind of, like, fix this thing. We are brother and sister duality completely, but at the core of that, like, at the core of our differences, not just our DNA, but, I wanted my brother to love me. Like, that was my mission in life, because he just wouldn't, like, he loved me, and he's like, I love you, but he was just like, meh. He's his own little, he's a little crab, Cancer. We're Irish twins, but the me side of us, and this is, the bigger thing that I'm speaking to, of duality, at the core, and this is something that I've always known, starting with spirituality, and people just in general, at the core, we're all human, or we're all souls, or da-da-da. The us and theming just never resonated with me. But my brother and I, yes, we are DNA, same, but, and, he is a boy and I'm a girl. He is very, like, raw, anarchist, like, but I don't know if he recognizes how similar we are, although, like, outwardly we present completely different, like, couldn't be more different. But then also, through my perception, we're so the same. Like, I notice my brother's heart is very guarded, but he always was, great with kids and animals, And so, like, I saw him. That's the thing, I guess. My sort of superpower is seeing people, and almost, immediately, I see, I guess, like, I see people's souls. I see their essence, their core, their, what's at the heart of the M&M. My brother, he's like an M&M, he's crunchy on the outside, and he's got yummy, like, gooey, soft chocolate on the inside. But, and he says, like, I'm all about, like, shitting rainbows, which, is certainly true, but I also, you don't want to fuck with me. I'm very, nonviolent and whatnot, but, and I don't have to do anything. Like, I got, I got friends on the other side. I was talking about, and my daughter, like, said that I was, what did she say? Not what was it? Fuck. It's like the word for, like, sappy. This was just last night. Cringe. And I was like, what? Because she asked me to, like, tell her the story of when I stopped two strangers that both had guns, and this is when it was right before I went to Kauai, and I was living at Pike Place Market, and they were across the street, and and I was just, like, talking to these two people who were, like, asking me, like, what are you doing? Like, I had my bike and my sleeping bag and me, like, just boop right there in the middle of the park, not, going to be a secret homeless person or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm on a test run. I'm testing out, homelessness, basically. This was, like, right before going to Kauai, and giving away all my stuff that wasn't my sentimental stuff. But, I was like, okay, because 𝐓𝐿 told me when I was a teenager that I would need to go to Hawaii. She didn't say Kauai. See, look, there's a K. Oh, KY. My brother's name is Keith. K-I-F. And people called him Kith all the time. But he is named Keith because in Morocco, I think, yeah, I went there in the womb, I'm pretty sure, but for sure my brother did. And the people would, like, pat my mom's belly and say, oh, boy or girl, and both asking the, same but different question. Do you want a boy or a girl, or are you having a boy or a girl? And she would say, oh, it doesn't matter, or whatever. I guess that was the story. But it was like, oh, Keef, same, like, boy, same, like, and me, the girl version of that story, which my brother loved to tease me that my name was, wait, what's the girl one? Oh, yeah. I'm like, I remember the male symbol, because I'm like, oh, it's like a penis. My name was almost Tajine, so, like, that was something that, when we'd, like, tease each other, it would be like, okay, Tajine, he would say to me. And, you know, I don't remember why he was doing that specifically, but as we got older, you know, like we would joke like that. But yeah, we've just had when I became awake fully, whatever, like, and you start seeing everything as like a reflection, not just of yourself, of aspects of yourself, of, you know, the Christ consciousness idea, seeing everyone at their core, at their full potential, you know, at their M&M center, because he put me through hell for sure, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, just in every way. And, you know, I think it's funny, he got kind of like mad at me, and I think it's just like a misunderstanding. Like I said, he doesn't know me really, but which is totally okay. But I was like, you know, I think it's a funny story, that, you know, my first day home from the hospital, and, you know, my mom leaned over, or maybe it was my dad. Yeah, it was my mom, because I can hear her voice telling the story. Like, she leaned over and, you know, oh, here's your new little sister. And whack, he just smacked me across the face, and that was it. And that's kind of, you know, where our relationship began. And it's been a slow process moving away from that. But, you know, he was one of the first people when I started kind of reflecting on my life, and through my, you know, newly expanded eyes, and I recognized that, you know, he was my greatest teacher, you know, even though 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧 gets the credit for being my main and my, you know, first spiritual teacher. Like everything, all of our experience, at least has the opportunity, if you accept it, to be teacher. You know, and my sort of thinking is, why on earth, and like I said, I've been through some shit, but why on earth would we take anything, and just look at the shitty side of it, you know? Because from getting run over and whatnot, I'm like, I am, you know, if anything, even when it was like, oh, you know, this fucking sucks or whatever, it was from the viewpoint of like, I'm a survivor, not a victim. So, and that's kind of always been my thinking, even before it was, you know, sort of my MO, my, you know, part of my code or whatever, you know. So yeah, and I've been talking for a while, and my daughter hasn't called me, and it's almost 8 o'clock. I'm guessing that she has changed her mind about doing something. She was going to sleep in. Originally, we had plans to do something on Saturday. But then, you know, our weeks got a little turned around because my ex-turtle didn't communicate with me her scheduled days off and whatnot. But then, you know, I found out through Little Chicken, that, you know, it was like, oh, you know, I'm mama, she's mommy, that, you she was home when I had expected her to be working. And then, but it was at like 5, because when during the week, like, we have a new thing going that we have an appointment to talk about school every day, so I can keep an eye on it, because she's now in 7th grade, and that's when school, from a not just learning perspective, but a future life matters. That's when it really starts kind of mattering. So, and last year and the year before, like after our separation, and then, 2024 especially, her grades tanked, and, but our family was going through a lot of stuff, and, I was kept out of the loop, kept out of my position was temporarily attempted. There was an attempted revocation of my role as co-parent, and not just co-parent, but I was the primary caretaker, stay-at-home parent, because I got run over by a truck. I am permanently physically disabled in that my body is unreliable in terms of working for someone else. So yeah, and that's, it was fine, I was on this mission and whatever, before we met, and before Riley was coming, and yeah, I didn't see that coming. I never, and that was, the most trying, most difficult, test, training, whatever, was all of that. But even then, the only reason that I survived it, I think, I'll say at this moment, is that, I got a lot of support in spirit, and, looking at my life and challenges, like I was just talking about, from the perspective of useful experience, even if I didn't fully understand it, that was part of my thing, was, like I was saying, Kuan and Ascended Masters, and we, the PTB people, including you, experience all of these different things. And my life has been, even though I haven't experienced everything, I've never been a prostitute, I've never, been a man, but I have experienced proximities, I've experienced enough, and with variation and whatnot, so that, which I now fully know, it's so that I can relate to everybody, to all of you guys, and yeah, so hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, well, and if you're still here, yay, and if you signed off, no worries, and think. I just uploaded, and that's where I was going to say this started. Here, I'll take a screenshot. So then actually, because this once I'm not using that because I don't have my little floaty avatar thingy. I'm usually using the, paint tools from that. But if I, X out or I want to erase something, once they're gone, they're gone. Like if I want to tap on something outside of the screen, like this, hey, that's what I was doing, just adding a description, and seeing which, visually, which of these alternative text, keyboard text, worked. And I decided that this was the one that, because I had to make sure that, for one, they would bring up me, not that me, this me. Let's see here, boop. I want that to be in the same line though, because that's my heart medicine, is otter medicine, my spirit medicine, from doing, the one time reading of my, forever medicine partners, spiritual as whale and otter, which then, like, 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧 thing, inside joke, that became a sloth. But I was wanting to keep that all on one line, ideally, because I'm trying to, come on, there we go, boop. I'm trying to actually, do this shit. That may or may not work, that hashtag. Yeah. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop. This is what I thought if it didn't, I could maybe do. No. So, it's like, what's the priority? Obviously, this is my YouTube channel, so I'm gonna take that out of there. And, I already copied it, but, all right. And that's AKA, and I was going to do like usually known as UKA, boop, boop, boop. Just, these are, with everything, it's creative, it's whatever. But, like 𝐓𝐚𝐥𝐤𝐢𝐧, the PTB, she was the sloth. But then it turned out that, oh, haha, it was me, the sloth, the slow. And that was about, once you reach a certain level of like, oh, yeah, I know this and I see this. And, where synchronicities are totally just like normal and like all day long, that it becomes like almost mundane. I would get super excited about like being dumb about things, like, and that's what, like, I use the word like, oh my god, I'm so retarded, but like the literal definition, the denotation of a retarded means like slowed, held back by, and whatever it is, my own awareness. And that's part of the lesson that, like, for those of you who are like, oh yeah, I'm enlightened, like, well, buckle up, because the minute you say that or think that or whatnot, if you're truly like consciously on a path of, evolution, of growth, and it can't just be just spiritual. It's everything's connected. But keep in mind the Zen mind, beginner's mind. Like, yes, I'm a teacher, a sifu, but I'm forever a student. And yeah, so if you want to say like, oh, and interpret me as, oh, my ego, and I think I'm all whatever, that's like, oh yeah, you my brother, when he said it, he was like, yeah, you fucking, like, shitting rainbows, because he was talking about, my work. And I was like, oh my God, like, I didn't say it. I might have laughed, and that might have, like, irritated him, but I was like, I love it, because it was so true. And, it was just like his lens looking at me is a little, like, distorted, because he hasn't taken the time to, get out the Windex or the, the salt water or whatever. And or the also truth of that is he's my teacher. So maybe his lens is perfectly clear. Like, one of my first favorite things I read in the Bible was, somebody was getting admonished for, oh, before you, basically think you're all that and are running around, pulling logs out of other people's eyes, like, or splinters out of other people's eyes, like, you need to first take those logs out of your own eyes. If you don't get what that means fully, like the context in this or in general or whatever, ask me. I'm happy. That's what I'm here for. And, I am an ordained minister. I am a master of metaphysics and a doctor of divinity. But those are just, window dressing. But like I said, I've been studying this and living it and experiencing it and from the time I was 12, and then, it's an ongoing situation. So, yeah. But this is my video that I was just posting. And let's see, did I lose it? Yeah, I thought that might happen. I was like, I could give you a preview. I'll give you a teaser. Let's see here. Let me just go and check out here. That'll stay open. Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, organizing is an ongoing process. But yeah, so that's, you can kind of see the, the evolution of these. That 749 in the picture, right? Yeah. That gets confusing sometimes. I'm like, oh, 712. Oh yeah, you were with me for that. I was like, that's a cool pellet. 649. 641, 635, 621. Don't know. That was like, oh, was that it? That might have just been whatever. Oh, that was just for my own keeping track of that green, which, you know, is one of the colors representing me. This was the other one. That's where it all started, right here. But it didn't catch. Well, there it did. 542 is where I switched from this task. See, these were my notes. This is behind the scenes. Like I said, I was seeing which one of these, and I was like, oh, that's an easy way to identify which ones. There's the video, or is that the screenshot? It is. I was like, that was going to be my thumbnail for the video that I uploaded. And then here's where, you know, boop, courier. That one, which is, you know, the last one, which you can see. You know, side notes. So, hey, here's the time I'm supposed to ask if it's organic, if you want to be subscriber number 9 or whatever when this finds you. Please do so. Comment, all that good stuff. Support in any and all ways is most appreciated. And, you know, since this is my work and will be hopefully a very sustainable income source, because right now I'm living my whole life on $900 a month. That's my kickback from my trust fund of the government giving me back money that I paid in. So yeah, that's all she wrote. That's all I got. Take it easy. Much love. All that good stuff. Yeah, I'm over it. Peace. This is normally that I'd get my little pop-up over here and do it. That's when it's like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Namaste, fuckers. Mwah. Oh, what? Huh? What the hell are you recording?